Guys, I really like the NEO-VOLKITE pistol. The ability to swat 30 spore mines out of the sky in one movement, the ability to pop cultists forever without having to reload. Yeah, the damage isn't fantastic, but guys, the comfort. the comfort, guys. Okay. This is kind of a nice glaze post for the NEO-VOLKITE pistol. It's so nice having a sidearm with perfect accuracy and massive magazines. Now, the reason I bring this up is because a lot of people in the comments had an issue with this post. Well, at the very least, I feel like there was a lot of people who were downplaying the NEO-VOLKITE pistol to the extent where we actually have a handful of people who think the NEO-VOLKITE pistol is useless, which is it's a pretty interesting criticism of the NEO-VOLKITE pistol at the moment. The heavy bolt pistol, the plasma pistol, two very, very good weapons right now. And I honestly, if as far as, using a weapon that, you want to be effective, I have a really hard time with switching either of those weapons. Sometimes I just switch them for each other. I will go from heavy bolt pistol to plasma quite often. And, obviously I will pick up the Inferno pistol as well. But still, the NEO-VOLKITE pistol, I think, is a pretty good weapon, but it is starting to fall behind, I think. At the moment, the NEO-VOLKITE pistol is definitely not something that you really need to run, even though they are talking about the 30 spore mines hitting out of the sky. Yeah, that's a very good use of the NEO-VOLKITE pistol. However, you can definitely see some people in the comments here who are less than enthused with the current state of it. So I definitely wanted to dive into this weapon since a patch is coming up. Perhaps maybe we can anticipate a buff for this weapon, but I think this weapon has been buffed multiple times, and I would really hate for this weapon to kind of fall behind in siege mode. I do think I made a video on the Inferno pistol. I do think the Inferno pistol is actually going to rise to the occasion in a sense for siege mode, and I think it's going to be very relevant to how many enemies you can take out with one bullet. Now, the NEO-VOLKITE pistol, it builds up. It definitely builds up. It's good against Terminus, but I have a feeling for the majority of siege mode, I have a feeling the NEO-VOLKITE pistol might not be in a good spot. But yeah, let's go into the comments. Let's deep dive into this weapon right now to see what exactly can even be changed about this weapon if that was the case. Sadly, it's pros and therefore a bulwark. Okay, so yeah, dude, I honestly remember when the NEO-VOLKITE pistol actually released. I was using that weapon quite a bit. But yeah, now that we have, reworked plasma pistol, reworked heavy bolt pistol, prestige perks for bulwark, honestly, I have a really hard time switching to the NEO-VOLKITE. You can just use the plasma to take out spore mines, but it is more ammo intensive. I understand that. And even during the time, well, here's the thing: the bulwark didn't have the heavy bolt pistol when I was doing lethal runs with the NEO-VOLKITE, so I really only had the plasma. And at the time, I kind of just thought the NEO-VOLKITE pistol was kind of more interesting. But now that the game's been going on, and with increasing difficulties and new patches and everything, it's the plasma pistol has really stood out to me. And honestly, yeah, now that the heavy bolt pistol is on bulwark, it's like, oh great. So even if there was a time where you kind of wanted the NEO-VOLKITE pistol, it's really hard to just take off the heavy bolt pistol, to be completely honest. But yeah, honestly, I do enjoy the NEO-VOLKITE pistol. I do think it's fun, but yeah, right now it was the same concern I had with the weapon when it kind of came out, when we were talking about it. The build up on it can kind of kill it in certain matchups, at least if you compare it to other weapons. But even the Inferno pistol, since it has burst damage and splash damage, it honestly, the Inferno pistol kind of feels like it has more utility than the NEO-VOLKITE pistol. But yeah, we actually go in pretty deep into this conversation here. Plenty of people have their thoughts about the NEO-VOLKITE pistol and its usefulness, which is kind of crazy, because it's only wild because I think it's kind of interesting how people can kind of get their own strategy going with a weapon, and then it kind of puts them in a position to defend it, because I think they use it quite a bit. It really doesn't. Plasma is better for minors enemies because of the splash damage on Gunstrike, but other than that, then the Vulkite is better in every way. So okay, so this guy thinks the plasma is better against the gaunts, but otherwise Vulkite is better. That's kind of wild. That's kind of wild. Maybe an ammo, but like the NEO-VOLKITE pistol, like don't let it trick you. It doesn't have the most ammo, but it is pretty good. Dude, honestly, against Rubric Marines, I would give the NEO-VOLKITE pistol maybe a little bit of an edge in that sense, but not against. Yeah, obviously not against Gaunts. Against, like, for gunstrike reasons, I would still probably go for the plasma pistol. So, I guess if I can't use gunstrikes, maybe then I'd use the NEO-VOLKITE pistol against Rubric Marines, but I guess it depends. It melts single targets if you get headshots, giving Bulwark the single target damage it lacks elsewhere in its kit. If you headshot if you headshot a Minorist, it just dies, meaning that it kills them faster than plasma in that regard. I'm not too sure which one they're trying to talk about here, because I'm pretty sure you can't just one-shot Gaunts in the head with the NEO-VOLKITE. Can you? That is pretty interesting, if so. I mean, hey, why not? Too useless, you're charging your shot, at which point you're just wasting ammo. Oh wait, if it melts, giving the Bulwark single target it lacks elsewhere in its kit. If you headshot a Minorist, it just dies, meaning that it kills them faster than plasma in that regard, unless you're charging your shot, at which point you're just wasting ammo. What? Wait, hold on. Okay. The reason I have an issue with that is because it's like, I guess, but like, it's not like the NEO-VOLKITE pistol is any less ammo intensive than the plasma. I mean, the charge shots, sure, you shouldn't be charge shotting a pack of Gaunts anyway. Hold on, let's stop right there. I mean, depending if you have a melee weapon or not, right? I guess it depends. Is there a major in the vicinity? Because then, yeah, then you can do it like that, I guess. It is literally only the gunstrike splash damage that the Vulkite is lacking over the plasma. Even the charge shot to interrupt takes about as long to charge up as it does proc a heat blast and interrupt. Okay, honestly, as much as I know the plasma is better than the NEO-VOLKITE, I do think they're making a rather compelling argument here, and this is kind of why I wanted to cover this now, because I think the balance of this weapon is definitely it's basically in a debate here, whether the NEO-VOLKITE pistol is actually good or bad, and I do think they have a point here with the dots compared to the charge shots. Here's where this argument starts to fall apart. Contested health. Contested health with the NEO-VOLKITE pistol is god awful. It's terrible. It's terrible. And with the plasma, it's still good. Even it was nerfed, and the plasma pistol still has really good contested health regeneration. So I really don't think it's a contest, to be completely honest, and obviously they do make an argument for the plasma being stronger because of the splash damage, but I would also argue it's the contested health as well. Yeah, the NEO-VOLKITE pistol being a more focused target weapon in siege mode is definitely going to hold it back, mainly due to the fact that it doesn't have splash damage. But honestly, if the NEO-VOLKITE pistol got splash damage on the explosions and actually like built up, I'm pretty sure it should have, right? I'm pretty sure the NEO-VOLKITE pistol should build up the burn damage, or whatever you want to call it. It should build up on splash after it explodes, right? With the enemies that surround it. I know we were talking about the gun strikes and build up on the NEO-VOLKITE pistol, and that doesn't work, but I'm pretty sure the explosion works, or maybe I am kind of misremembering. I have used the NEO-VOLKITE pistol quite a bit, but it definitely doesn't feel super impactful regardless if you get like an explosion, and I'm pretty sure it really doesn't affect the surroundings that much. But if it doesn't, it should, and if it does, it should be buffed. Pretty much is what my point here is. That would be kind of a cool, unique thing for the NEO-VOLKITE to do. If you actually was able to trigger the explosion, it should 100% do more splash damage. I actually think the fact that they compared these two weapons, and basically the one weakness of the lack of splash damage for the Vulkite pistol, and not to mention the other weakness being the contested health, I feel like one of those weaknesses at least deserves some sort of support. But dang, this guy did kind of at least defend the NEO-VOLKITE pistol, so that is kind of why we're here. This is more of like a debate, I guess. I swear it does amazing DPS on everything. Hip-firing that thing into a Matrix for a proc or two while closing the gap for melee is an incredible fast way to kill a Matrix. Alright, I will admit, never considered this, never considered hip-firing the NEO-VOLKITE pistol, and I can definitely understand how that could be a benefit to using the weapon, 100%. The procs also damage and stun everything around your target, which is great. Amazing weapon for literally everything but horde clearing. Is the NEO-VOLKITE pistol really bad against Gaunts? I guess that kind of confirms the splash damage is just awful, or non-existent, I guess. But yeah, okay. So I think they have a good point here. As far as the hip fire, maybe the NEO-VOLKITE pistol is more of a hip fire weapon, but still, I mean, it's hard to argue the fact that it's like, I could just use the heavy bolt pistol for that same thing and just not Hipfire. However, I do think that is a redeeming quality for the NEO-VOLKITE pistol. It at least gives it some sort of unique quality to it. I'm actually pretty impressed with how people are able to, like, dude, to be completely honest, I think I speak for a handful of people who think this weapon is genuinely kind of underwhelming, but still seeing other people's perspective and how they can kind of find a weapon that maybe I'm not good with, or I can't really figure out a unique way to use it. It's still really cool to see other people pick it up and figure out something that I probably didn't think about. Hip-firing a NEO-VOLKITE pistol sounds simple, but sometimes it just doesn't click. But yeah, you know what? Ultimately, I do think this stun potential definitely makes sense. Like, this is still a good argument. I still think plasma would stun them and do more damage, right? Something like that. One thing I think a lot of people are forgetting, which is supremely critical, is hitting the target, at least for me, because I'm not one of those guys who can aim at 360 no scope headshot level. All right, all the damage and modifiers in the world don't mean anything if my shot doesn't connect. There's a tiny delay depending on the distance between each shot from a plasma heavy bolt pistol and hitting the target, during which the target might dodge. Yeah, I mean, honestly, fair. Throne knows enough carking zoanthropes have in my case. Alright, the NEO-VOLKITE pistol's pretty good against zoanthropes, sure, but like, at the time, the NEO-VOLKITE pistol, at least when I was using it, was like a pretty good weapon to complement melee builds, and I think, obviously, for the reason they are talking about here is the accuracy and the range. And yeah, honestly, it's really kind of hard to argue against that maybe the NEO-VOLKITE's quality is just, in fact, the fact that it's super accurate and easy to use in that case. With each shot of the plasma heavy bolt pistol, I have to recalculate in my head where to aim to hit the damage bug for each shot. That takes fractions of seconds of attention and time, which I might need for other things. Do I prioritize calculating trajectory to hit its zoanthrope, or get out of the way of this Carnifex rampaging towards me? So the NEO-VOLKITE pistol basically registers faster because of bullet velocity, in which case you have more time to figure out what to do. Okay, the weapon's faster. Wouldn't the heavy bolt pistol be faster in this case? Because then you just shoot it once and now you can just dodge or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, isn't the build-up here kind of like not working in your favor as far as like that argument? But all right. Whereas with the Vulkite, it acts as its own red dot sight. I do like that. I do admit that is kind of a cool property of the weapon. All I need to do is hit the target once and hold the button down for continual constant damage. If the target moves, I just move the ray and it pretty much continues hitting and damaging. No time, or not as much time, spent on recalculating. Sure, it might not be as beefy as a heavy bolt pistol, or have the splash of a plasma, but at least I don't have to recalculate each shot on the fly and run the risk of missing one or two, which when you're trying to bring down a floating bug, you want every shot to count. Fair, but you also want good gun strikes if you're good at dodging the death beam, I think, but like, that's not required. As I play on PC with keyboard and mouse, I have to aim on my own, which is why the Vulkite is more helpful. I wouldn't know about the controllers, but I do know there are aim assist settings. Yes, there are. Also, there's this thing called personal preference. Yeah, I mean, fair. I think that's less of a compelling point than hitting the target point. I think accuracy is actually a really fair advantage for the weapon that definitely has its advantage over the plasma pistol and the heavy bolt pistol. That's fair. I like using the Vulkite because its tech brought back and improved by call from the days of the Great Crusade. And using it feels like tribute to my chapter when it was a Legion, check flare for which one. As for gunstrike damage, depending on your build, I'm thinking Assault and Bulwark here. Wouldn't you want a weaker gunstrike because of the perk? Okay, this is wild. Because of the perk that gives non-ending gunstrikes armor back to you? Look, man, I just will find a new target with that. What? This is okay. I will admit the fact that they went this far to defending the NEO-VOLKITE pistol definitely is entertaining, 100%. As I see it, feel free to politely check my badge of the napkin calculations. Weaker gun strike equals more gun strikes equals more opportunities to keep armor up at full, right? Or am I missing something? Yeah, you're missing something there. You're missing something. I'll just parry and get another gun strike on a different enemy after I take that one out, you know what I mean? Just my thoughts on this from my perspective experience playing the game. Yeah, they're fair thoughts. I think obviously the accuracy and honestly the velocity of the bullet as well. I think those are compelling arguments for the NEO-VOLKITE pistol and its range. However, those are two things that I just kind of deal with the heavy bolt pistol and the plasma, ultimately to gain all the other advantages that they have, mainly contested health. You have to admit, contested health, not getting that back for higher difficulties can pretty much kill this weapon, like 100%. If your weapon can't get contested health back, it can pretty much be dead in the water when it comes to absolute. So, yeah, I mean, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this. I highly doubt you can top this one, though, to be completely honest. If there's a NEO-VOLKITE enjoyer in the comments, I have seen a few people say it's still pretty good on Vanguard, which is interesting. I guess, you know, Melta, maybe. In the case of using the Melta, I would have a hard time trying to imagine trading out a Melta for a plasma or heavy bolt pistol on a Vanguard. I guess it really depends, but considering grapple, you know, so if you have a Melta, you kind of just grapple right up to them and just take them out, and the Melta's still really strong. But yeah, I mean, this was actually a pretty fun conversation because this is a weapon, like as some of these enjoyers of the NEO-VOLKITE pistol have mentioned, the red dot quality of the weapon is definitely very, very cool, and I do think it deserves more splash damage, and it doesn't have to take away anything from the plasma. I think obviously the NEO-VOLKITE pistol is already incredibly unique due to this accuracy and velocity and, you know, all of that target management, I guess. But yeah, overall, it definitely feels like it's falling a little bit behind, and probably mainly due to the contested health. But hey, you know what? I think these guys successfully defended the NEO-VOLKITE pistol. But I mean, ultimately, we kind of wanted to see it get buffed. So anyone who, like, you know, enjoys that weapon, I think we're all on the same page. You could definitely use a contested health rework or something. But yeah, ultimately, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this. And thanks for watching.